able to demonstrate to the public how well the council's going. And yeah, so that's what it's one of my questions. But I think it would be worthwhile a conversation, especially because I would think if the public read the papers, it would be very hard for them to get a snapshot of where things are at.
I'll answer that, Councillor. It is something that we're looking at in terms of the longer term, the review of our Q2 reporting, and in terms of the because I know this answer because you've asked it and we've already prepared it. Ideally, that kind of infographic one-pager is something that we would like to produce. We've obviously in the executive summary, there's probably a lot more information than a one-pager, but we will think about that in terms of the next quarter.
So could we have it for next quarter? Because I know not that I've just asked this question, I have asked it in previous times, yeah. A commitment for next quarter?
Look, I can answer that. So we are doing a full review of the quarterly report process. What we're at the moment trying to do is line up the full review with the next LTP. Right. We can look at simplifying the executive summary certainly for the next quarter for you, but the full review is going to take place for the next LTP. So we want to line up, in essence, the next iteration of the quarterly report as part of that process, and we want your feedback as part of that process as well. So if you recall, last time in terms of the quarterly report, we made substantial changes on the back of a review. We got your feedback, and the quarterly report that's in front of you today is quite different than how it used to be represented 3 or so years ago. What tends to happen, though, when we do these reviews is that we get feedback from councillors, and we want that you want more information, and so the quarterly report tends to grow over a number of years, and so it's important to have a reset every 3 years to get back to something that is a little bit more digestible. But we're absolutely, of course, 100% in your hands. The information needs to be useful for you all to monitor the organisation and what's being delivered, and we look forward to having that conversation with you.
I think the other key point is digestible by the public. Yeah, thank you.
I know that there are some questions for Wellington Water, but I don't see any other hands up at the moment around the... Oh, yes, Councillor Jung.
Thanks very much. I'm very interested, like everyone else, about how we're progressing with Wellington Water now. We've just had an email with talking about the negotiations with private plumbers and drain layers and contractors. Is this like, and I've been talking to some of the Wellington Water people about this, and so is this likely to result in increased costs because these, if we get private contractors and private plumbers and drain layers, they're not set up to actually do these things all the time, and so therefore the cost basis of them would be, is that likely to be more expensive?
Is this a question for you, Chris? I'm looking at you, or Wellington Water. Well, yeah. Why don't the Wellington Water people come up? Welcome, haere mai. And sorry to other people that there was a lack of questions, but they might come up later. You never know. Welcome, Mark. And Chris, if you want to come up as well while we do this, that might be useful. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you. Good question. Obviously, we're working with Master Plumbers, and we've got Tim Hardy is actually online, who's head of our operations team. Yeah, costs, obviously, we get a set budget every year, and we obviously promise not to overspend that. And then, you know, we'll make decisions whether we allocate that work to those plumbers or not. At the moment, we're just working through a process with them, working out whether that's feasible or not. Potentially, it might be more expensive, so we wouldn't allocate the jobs to them. It depends on the jobs, of course, and their capability. Chris, you've been involved in some of those discussions as well, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I haven't been directly involved in the discussion, but I understand that Wellington Water are working with Zach from our council to work out what that ultimate process looks like. And we understand from Kevin Locke that they are quite excited about getting the plumbers on board. So we're just going to keep working with Wellington Water and the Plumbers Association to fast track this as best we can.
And Tim, you might be able to provide some insight. Tim Hardy's online. He's actually been dealing with that directly.
Yeah, kia ora koutou. Can you hear me first and foremost, of course?
We can, thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, so look, I think what Mark and Chris have indicated about the work we're doing with Master Plumbers is all on point. We'll just continue to work with them and bring them on board for those that are keen to work with us to deliver the right sort of jobs that they're set up to do and in the right sort of context and way. And the cost for that will be what it is, I guess, in terms of whatever that work might be. So probably more suited to doing the Toby leaks and those sorts of things, less traffic management involved, and the type of reinstatement that doesn't involve concrete or asphalt reinstatement. So that sort of work. So we'll just continue to do that. And there's a number of other initiatives that we're working with them on as well around the private leaks and being a bit more direct in getting support into the public through Master Plumbers and reporting back to us about the leaks being repaired on private properties and things like that. So some real benefits in there, and also a bit of a direct phone line into us where they can we can understand if there's a sort of a crisis issue where they can't locate a Toby, and they can get through to us a bit faster because those jobs could typically be allocated as P3s in our current sort of system. So I think it's a real beneficial conversation to have.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, a few tranches from me, but I'll just jump into the Master Plumbers because I saw the RNZ report yesterday. So what actual progress has happened since the meeting with them 3 weeks ago?
So I'll hand that over to Tim, actually. Tim, you've been dealing with
Yeah, no problem. So look, we've been working with them to get the systems in place. I mean, one of the first ones that we're keen to work with them on, and I know they're keen with, to progress is a line into Wellington Water that we can bring them through the council systems and alert us that there's an issue and get it directed to our staff. Sounds really simple on the face of it, and always is. Back in the day, they'd just have the phone number of the, cell phone number of the right person out in the field or in the office to ring, but our calls are all directed through our client council, so we just need to set up a system where they can ring the client council, the call can get identified as fitting into a particular category, push through to us, and then set up the call direction through us to go to the right people internally to answer that call. That all takes time, and we've been having conversations with them about that. We're also working on the pre-qualification that's needed for them to come on board and be part of the team and be part of our contracting team. So clearly we need to work through the health and safety and also the qualifications that we're required to demonstrate to our compliance, so taumata arawai, about the work we do and the records and systems and information we need to collect to report back on making sure that the work we do on the network doesn't impact on public health and safety.
Well, thanks, Tim. You've led into the next question. The requirements that you're putting around the private contractors for compliance, health and safety, are these outside the realm of what you would have your ordinary contractors going in terms of the qualifications? Are you expecting them to be qualified at a level above the existing Wellington Water workforce?
It's exactly the same process and expectations. There's no difference no matter what. And we already have plumbers pre-qualified and on our system for we've got, I think, 3 or 4 already as approved subcontractors for us. It's exactly the same.
Okay, and last one on this tranche. When can we actually expect a job to make its way into the hands of Master Plumbers?
Well, I guess that's an unanswerable question in the context of it really depends what the job is and what they want to do and who steps up and says we want to be pre-qualified.
Thank you. I'll go back on the list.
Councillor Free.
Yeah, like recently I dealt with a resident who had a leak but was told by Wellington Water they couldn't establish whether it was a private or a public leak. So how complicated is it for your organisation to work out whether it's a private or a public matter?
It depends on the situation. I'll hand that over to Tim as well. He deals on that on a day-to-day basis. So, Tim.
Yeah, no worries. So, thanks, Councillor. I mean, a really good question. And again, one of the ones on the face of it that said if you had a water connection into a property on a flat street with a good grass verge, it would be really relatively simple to understand where the leak's coming from and whether it was private or public. Unfortunately, a lot of, particularly Wellington City, is challenging topography and challenging layouts of the network. So it's never quite as easy to determine whether the leak is coming from, and it can travel down the pipe and pop out at the Toby, for example, is an open space. So it might travel down up the pipe, you know, the material surrounding the pipe, and come out through the Toby box, be logged as a public leak. We'll turn up, dig around and see that it's flowing down from the private side, for example. So it's never as straightforward as it appears to be on the face of it.
Just so that we can understand the process, what's the process? Who has to make the first step? Will Wellington Water look into it initially, or what do you do? What can the customers, what can our residents expect?
So we'll typically look into that. So a majority, if not all, of our private leaks that we pick up come through our detection teams that will go through, that are working on looking for underground non-servicing leaks. So they'll pick up private leaks. First thing we do is find and test that the Toby's working, and then we try and identify where it is on a private property and report that through to the team here. We'll send off the first of the 3 letters that we have as a process to send off.
Okay. So they would expect Wellington Water to take the initiative?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'll go back on the list too, thanks.
Deputy Mayor Foon.
Great, thank you. In December, we agreed to $2 million extra for emergency leak repairs on the condition of monthly reporting to WCC. So question around why have we received the first report in March?
So would you like me to answer that?
Answer that. So that's for the Q2 report.
Yep.
The information was requested by staff, which was received in December last year. And this is the first quarter that we've actually been able to, the first meeting that we've actually been able to bring this through to elected members, giving the reporting cycle and the inclusion within the Q2 report.
Okay, so then can I ask, have we been receiving the monthly reporting as requested from Wellington Water?
Well, the information that we received, for 22-23 was received in December. So there was some delays to receiving that information and the wash up of that information.
And so since then, have we been receiving a report January, February?
I can answer that. So, the first report we agreed to give it at the start of March because, Tim, you can explain. Obviously, we've taken a number of weeks to stand up the crew, and we knew that the work wouldn't start until February, and so the reporting was starting after that work started. Tim, you can explain that process.
Yeah, Mark's correct, Councillor. So the contract itself started on the 29th of January. The contract works. So we didn't let that work until then. So the first monthly report came in March. So they worked through February. We get a claim in. We process that claim under the Contracts Construction Act, which we have to go through a number of steps to process that claim, certify it, and then you've got that February report now, which is the first report. So that's just the logical sequence of the steps in standing up that work itself.
Great. So that means, are you saying we are now on track to have that monthly reporting coming to officers from Wellington Water?
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Calvert.
So I appreciate all the work that you're putting into stepping up master plumbers to be able to help, but there's only limited budgets. So are we in a position of you setting this up, and for the remainder of the year, will we be able to utilise them? Is there funding there basically available?
Good question. Tim, you manage the budgets for the customer operations group, but it will be limited because our budgets are stretched, obviously. We promised to come within budget, and certainly, we've got 1,500, 2,000 leaks outstanding, so budgets are stretched, so it's unlikely there'll be significant money spent on those.
Thank you.
Councillor McNulty?
Yeah, sorry. So I appreciate Mark and Tim, neither of you are your chair, who's made the comments, but he was on Hosking yesterday talking about the reporting. So I'm talking about this $2 million funding allocation, and he said that the reporting requirements are driving part of the cost blowout. Now that spreadsheet contains the leak reported, leak fixed, cost, address, estimated flow rate, and whether it's rework. So I'm just wondering what part of those data fields is, so bureaucratic or assumedly time exhausting, but it's having a material impact on cost repairs.
Yeah, I don't think they are. The reporting is a small part of the cost.
Okay, that's good to clarify. Thank you.
We have conversations during the session.
So in terms of the fields that are in that report for that $2 million, is that stuff that's being collected as BAU by Wellington Water at the moment with other OPEX spending as well?
Great.
Okay, that's good. Again, as well, the second part that he spoke about was that they're having to upskill new contractors, and that's the other part driving those costs out. But I think from the reporting, it looks like work's being done by GP Friel and SAP, who I believe are already approved contractors. So I'm just trying to understand what's driven this blowout from, an estimate of $2,500 to almost $5,000 a leak.
Yeah, no, good question, and that's why we've got Tim on board. He's going to answer that question. Tim, you can go through that.
Yeah, so look, I think in terms of the work there, GP Friel aren't part of the contract, so this contract is let through SAP only. We've stood that contract up really quickly to get those guys on board and launch into trying to get this work done. It's the first month, we're ramping up. There's increased cost because it's sitting outside of normal BAU to get that contract up and running. Got contractual costs sitting in there, and those claims come through what you have in terms of the Excel spreadsheet that supported the report is just simply the contractual claim that comes through from the contractor with the cost per leak and the information that was requested by council officers to be supplied. At that granular level is only supplyable because we're doing this outside of our normal structure in terms of how the alliance is set up and how we deliver normal leaks. So we don't. So we've got the ability through a contract to say how much did that one cost, when did you go there, when did you stop it, and what's the estimate for that leak. As we move forward, we'll get better, and we're hoping to see the plan is to see the numbers of leaks increase to 4 or 5 a day, and we'll see how that cost drives as we move forward. But it is month one of a rapidly stood up contract to get this work done, bearing in mind the space between the 18th of December when the funding was committed. We did have Christmas and obviously all the challenges around that and getting everything up and running.
Okay, thank you. I'll have another round on traffic management, but go for a few more councillors first.
Thanks, Ben. Councillor Brown.
Thanks. Actually, I think, Tim, this is probably for you. When we approved the funding back in December, we were told that effectively the reason we were being asked for the additional funding was because there were an existing series of work programs which were running out of money. So in other words, you've just said that this is actually now the funding has gone towards a completely new set of work programs. So can you reconcile those? I thought we had agreed to provide funding for an ongoing works program as opposed to something that was going to be set up from scratch, or did I misunderstand what was actually offered or proposed back in December?
Oh, look, I might have confused things, councillor, so apologies for that. So whilst this is just delivering priority 3 and 4 leak repairs, we're just using we're having to bring in external resources to deliver that, to supplement our own crews who continue to work in that space to deliver P1s and 2s and 3s and 4s as well. So we just got more contract resource brought in. We engage that in the same way we'd engage the master plumbers as approved subcontractors. And by doing that, we run that through a contractual framework that allows us to collect the data in a different way.
So I think in short, it's not a separate program. We've got a list of backlogs of leaks and we're just allocating those leaks to this contractor. So it's part of the same overall program. It's not a different program.
So if you've put in new resource with this additional funding, what happened to the existing program and the existing resources that were employed?
They'll be just reallocated to P1s, P2s and P3s. Yep, so the same
they just continue to deliver as Mark's suggesting. So all we're doing is bringing in additional resources to try and drive the backlog of leaks down.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, I just had a point of clarification because it was before my time. I was just wondering who at council agreed to delay that reporting until March?
Again, I don't think it was council. It's just the structure of the contract. The contract didn't commence until the 29th of January. We can't report on that until the first claim comes in, which is at the end of February, and we need to process that claim and make sure it was correct, and therefore the first report comes out in March. It's just the way it is structured in a typical contractual sort of process. I was actually quite pleased, to be fair, that we managed to get that claim in through, processed and out in quite a good time frame for us.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry about that. Just before my time, so just
clarification. No, that's all right. No problems at all. Please.
Councillor Free.
Thank you. Just carrying on from my last questions, which were about the private versus public leaks and the Wellington Water undertaking the investigation in the first instance. If it turns out to be a private leak, what does the customer expect to pay for that investigation, or is it part of the service?
Not for the investigation.
Not for the investigation. Okay. I'm just trying to clarify what they can expect. Can I ask just about how you triage? How do you triage your jobs? Because we have got a lot of backlog. So how's that getting triaged in terms of severity and time of duration?
Yep. So I'll hand that over to Tim as well. He's the expert. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Mark. So, look, we've got a prioritisation process that's in place. I think that's been shared with council, and I haven't got it in front of me, but essentially it just
Actually,
talks to...
I am aware of it, sorry.
Yeah.
I know it's based on volume.
That's volume, and also health and safety risk, and also brings into visibility of, highly trafficked public places where we get lots of duplicates as well. So there's a few things in there that prioritise that, but that's what we use to triage all our leaks.
Is there any consideration given to how long a person's been waiting to have a leak addressed, or does that just not factor in at the moment?
Doesn't factor in at the moment.
And one more question is just about your commercial pressure. What is Wellington Water doing to manage, put some more commercial sharpness around the pricing for jobs?
So if you understand our commercial model, it's a cost plus. So it's not pricing, it's efficiency that we look at. So we don't price individual jobs with our contractor, Fulton Hogan, or our alliance partner. So the commercial model is not a fixed price unit cost contract, so it's quite different. So I guess the way we operate is try and get efficiency with our frontline crews and getting them operating as quickly and as efficiently as possible, fixing as many leaks, and that's around team capability, dispatching to the right jobs, and building that team capability really.
You did say, however, that you thought your plumbers might be more expensive than your current pricing. But I would
hand that over to Tim, actually. Yeah, I haven't been negotiating the hourly rates on that one, so Tim.
Kevin Locke's joined as well, and Kevin's been doing a bunch of work in that space. He might be able to provide a bit more direct evidence on that than me.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. Look, we're working through a number of things with the master plumbers at the moment. So we've got a project underway. We've had 3 engagements with them. Just how that develops over time will just take some time. We want to explore that opportunity to its full extent, but we don't quite know what the outcome of that's going to be. The first phase of that was trying to reduce some friction for when they're working on residential properties and pulling bathrooms out and kitchens out and discover they can't isolate the water because the Toby's not working or the Toby in fact is leaking. So it's improving our process around how we manage that so they can contact us and can escalate their work so it doesn't disrupt them carrying out that private work for people. So that's the kind of first tranche. Second tranche then looks at, are there some types of repairs that they can do while they're on that residential property to a Toby that don't put public health at risk or put themselves at risk? And then the third tranche is really looking at, can they contribute to our wider program of work where there's simple repairs to be performed on the network? All that needs to be unpicked at the moment. It will take a bit of time, but we are interested at building long-term capability. So if it's a good opportunity, we'll definitely chase it down. Just incidentally, we do have our real challenge at the moment is that some of our contractor panel members, work is slowing down for them in the capital program. So we're collaborating with them as well to see if they can deploy some of their resources to some of our operational work. So as the market has generally slowed down, residential construction's come off and so on, there's lots of people willing to help at the moment. It's just making sure that they've got the right skills to help us.
Does that mean if there's more workforce available, we expect a bit more sharpness around pricing? How do you actually ensure commerciality if you've just got this, what did you call it, the alliance model?
So it's a cost plus margin.
Yes.
So that's a 10-year contract with the alliance.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm not sure I feel I've had my answer, but never mind. Thank you for the information you provided.
Councillor McNulty.
This tranche and then one last one in the next tranche, promise. Just actually picking up on Councillor Brown, so I did go back to watch the December meeting when we authorised the funding, and what Wellington Water talked about was picking an area, doing up to 20 at a time, so you got efficiency with a traffic management plan, and then looking through the actual job list, there's sort of been 3 tranches that reflect that, 13 in Tawa over 2 weeks, 8 in Newlands, Paparangi over 2 days, and I think there was 7 in Wilton, Northland over 3 days, but by and large the rest of the leaks have been one-off type jobs. So has the scope of work changed internally from what this funding was envisioned, and was that run past WCC?
So I'm happy to answer that. So no, the scope hasn't changed. Again, just want to put Councillor the context of standing this up from a standing start. So some of the initial leaks that were done were some problematic niggly ones that had been sitting around for a while and needed to get addressed. And then we're starting to walk into that bundling that you're starting to see in the Newlands sort of Tawa area. That's starting to see the bundles coming together as we run alongside and parallel and do that work. So it will take us a bit of time to get up and running. But, it's looking better and should look better as we progress, and you'll see those bundles coming through in suburbs.
Okay, some on traffic management now. So in Tawa with the main road project last year, you had about 1 kilometre of traffic management set up while you were replacing the main. You got to December, the project didn't quite finish. It was cheaper to pack up all the traffic management, put it away and then roll it out 3 weeks later to do it for 3 weeks again. So I guess I'd just question, are you getting the most cost-effective arrangement in the current model for traffic management?
So the current arrangement is a repair truck and a traffic management truck going from job to job. So they just follow each other around, and we do those in a planned and systematic way from that perspective, and we use, we're well wired into the RCA around how that works, and the reinstatements are all done at the same time. So you'll see in the information that's provided, some of the reinstatement information might be there, and that talks about getting in and finishing it off immediately as well. So it's all tied together.
I guess though in this case, we had almost a kilometre of cones, fencing, VMS boards, that it was cheaper to pack it up than leave it there and then put it back out. So I would assume under a fixed price model, it wouldn't have mattered if that stayed there or not over the Christmas break. But in this instance, it was cheaper. So I'm trying to understand how that works from a cost efficiency perspective.
Perhaps I can add some insight there. It's not actually one of the projects that we look after, because I presume it was a renewal, but traffic management you normally pay for on a working day. And so if that traffic management had been left out over that period, it would have required ongoing maintenance, I guess, for an STMS has to inspect sites on a regular basis to make sure cones haven't been moved or signs haven't fallen over and so on. So there would be ongoing costs in providing that service, if that makes sense. So just standing back from it all, I would have thought it would have been certainly more cost efficient to take that traffic management out for that period of time and then reinstall it.
Okay, last one on traffic management. So forgive the acronyms, but I understand we're moving from the COP TTM model to the new standard NZGTT. So what that means in human being is we're moving from a plan which you submit to Wellington City Council as the road controlling authority, and we say, yep, this meets the traffic management criteria, to a model where the contractor goes out on site and assesses what they think is sufficient for that model. It feels that model opens up price gouging if the contractor relationships aren't tight. It's what's to stop the contractor saying we need triple the traffic management as usual. So I'm interested to understand what Wellington Water are going to be doing to manage that risk, especially if you're not using fixed price arrangements.
Perhaps I might be able to help again. I think traffic management at the moment, as you say, the current practice is a traffic management plan is prepared. It's submitted to the RCA for approval, and generally that approval is given if it complies with the code. The big change is moving to more of a risk management approach, where the contractor who is accountable for that traffic management has to make sure it's fit for purpose, and then it's shared with the RCA I'm not sure if it's for endorsement, but I think the approval part does change. But when it comes to that level of service, we'll certainly be testing to make sure it is fit for purpose and it protects the health and safety of our workers. I think the new code is actually aimed at, striking a better balance between a one size fits all to getting plans or approaches that are more bespoke. And I think overall the cost should be reduced as we move forward.
Excellent. One last one, but go another round and then promise it's the last.
Councillor Chung.
Great, thanks very much. My question is about getting specific updates on things. Now, at the moment, what I'm doing is that when I have a complaint from a constituent about a particular leak, what I do is I actually send the inquiry to the council, then the Wellington Council, and then they pass on the question to Wellington Water, and then it goes on to someone else, and eventually the answers come back. But is that an inefficient way of doing things? Like, can we actually find out more information more directly? Because I'm getting these questions, and I can't answer them until I actually get the feedback from Wellington Water teams. Now, one specific example of that is that I was up at the Waystown Community Centre last week for a meeting, and a Wellington Water truck was up there checking on a leak that had been repaired. So I asked them about a leak that was actually coming out of on the footpath outside the community centre, and so he came to look at that and he said, "Oh, I think that water is actually coming from the community centre, which is the Wellington City Council property. So therefore, it's actually your responsibility to actually fix it because it comes from your property." But how can I get information on that as to what action we actually do? So, like, I don't know whether that's been passed back or not.
Okay, great. Can we get some answers to those? Thank you.
Well, I'll hand it over to Kevin, actually. So he obviously handles all those queries. We do have an agreed process with Wellington City Council through the call centre and for elected officials, and that seemed to work reasonably well. But Kevin, you might be able to expand on how that's working.
Thanks, Mark. I don't handle every one personally, I'm going to say. Look, I think that I'm not sure what your internal process is, but coming back through your contact centre to come back through to Wellington Water is probably the most efficient in terms of us being able to provide an update on that. Every job's different, I guess, and there's different requirements in terms of the update, whether we're trying to find out where it sits in the queue, whether it's been logged or not, whether it's been completed and so on. So we just need to be a little bit agile around that, I guess. But as I say, I'm not quite sure of your internal process around that.
Oh, sorry, can I? Okay, so should I actually continue on with the same process that I'm using to okay, great.
It's the most efficient.
Okay, thanks. I'm just concerned that I'm tying up a lot of people's time and effort in trying to answer these.
We enjoy that. We enjoy responding to those.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Free.
Oh, look, I was going to ask about abatement notices on our wastewater treatment plants. I've actually put an email to our staff about this one, but you're here. What abatement notices do we currently have outstanding for any of our treatment plants?
We've got a number. I think we've got Jeremy online. Jeremy, are you there? He's our wastewater treatment plant expert.
I don't think he is, Mark.
Okay. I might need to come back to you with specifics. I know we've got a couple outstanding, but
yeah, I think it's at least a couple for Moa Point, and there might be some others for Karori. Yep. But I don't think we've got much visibility of this issue, and I'd like us to have more visibility.
Yeah, we give monthly reports to the council, so maybe we can start sharing those.
Oh, okay.
So I have all this information.
Okay.
I received your emails. I'll send it to you later today. That's okay.
That's okay. And are we giving enough budget to fixing our wastewater? I heard that the budget that had been asked for 3 years is being stretched out over 4 for Moa Point. Is that likely to lead to some issues?
So based on Moa Point and the Western Outfall, we're funding 85% of the recommended budget from Wellington Water.
So that's for the long-term plan coming.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councillor McNulty, you're on again.
Sorry, just quick clarification. So those costs on the report of the December work, where we're at 4.9k per leak today, include the Alliance markup?
Tim, you can probably answer that one. You paid the bill.
Tim's looking across at me. Thanks, Mark. What it includes is the overhead as part of our organisational setup to manage all work. So as I look at our organisation, so, from having our customer hub to having our planning and performance team to having our engineering technical advisors and so on, that is the overhead that gets applied to managing that work.
Okay, all right. Last one. So this morning there was the report. We've got 3.7 thousand leaks of backlog in the region. I think you've quoted 12 million to fix. We've got this minor project, and I understand maybe we've got a bit of a bump on the front end while it gets its wheels going, but we're almost double the estimate that you had for December in terms of repairs. So what's the assurances you can actually provide to the council of the ability to deliver within the year a full clearance of our backlog for about that $7 million for WCC?
I think if we, there's probably two questions in there around the estimate that's been prepared and the rate we've used for that and our ability to deliver. In terms of the estimate, what we looked at was our range of costs for performing work across the network, and used that as a rate against those leaks. And it is an estimate. There's a whole lot of variables to it. Then when it comes to our, and I guess the estimate we used is based on a mixed model of using what we refer to as our in-house resources. So our alliance partnership between Wellington Water and Fulton Hogan, our in-house delivery resources, and also external contractors. Then when it comes to the deliverability, I guess we will have to stand up more resource to deliver that. And I guess we've started to talk to some of our contractor panel that have been doing CapEx work, who have some capacity. And I guess we're under no illusion that planning that piece of work takes a bit of time. So the earlier we get a steer on whether that is something councils are going to elect to do, the better. So we can plan it well. That way we'll get the best overall outcome in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. And then if we have that that time up front, we are confident that we can deliver it in the next financial year.
I just want to say thanks, Kevin, Mark and Tim. I know I've many questions, but appreciated.
Does anybody else have any further questions about any of the reports, not just Wellington Water? It looks like we're out. Thank you very much, everybody. That's the end of the session. Thank you.